Today we are literally going to the birds. We're going to talk about a book written by an actress you may know who apparently, when she wasn't filming, was out looking for birds. Let me explain.
One for the bird.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I know. We are talking about an interesting book here. So, we're talking about a book called Turning to the Birds by Lily Taylor. You may remember her from Say Anything, Mystic Pizza, the Conjuring movie, a bunch of others. So apparently, when she wasn't on set making all of these films, she became a hardcore birder, which is the term used for those who
With
take
their
their binoculars
binoculars looking for the
and
bird.
go out. Exactly. It just made the New Yorker and Library Journal Best of Books the year. This was a few years ago, but it is still one of the top books according to them.
Hmm,
So first off, what kind of book is this? Who is it for? This is not a field guide. This is not one of those nature books. This is a story on an individual. Just so happens to be a actress, but really it's just an individual who views the world differently after getting into a hobby that she herself never thought she'd ever get into.
Thanks.
Um, she was doing all these movies. She needed a break. She was getting a little burned out. So she's like, hey, what's everybody doing these days? And learns that one of the bigger conventions in her area at the time was birding events where people would come and grab their binoculars, they would sign in, and they basically would just drive out to a open space and they would search for various birds. And usually what you would do is find the birds of your state. I
Interesting.
believe she was from Chicago, so whatever the birds are there. Um, and throughout all these experiences, she kind of got pulled into this more and more to the point where when she had free time, instead of necessarily going home, she would say, hey, I'm going to go out and go check out the birds. At one point, she actually did an overnight one where she met up with another group and basically kind of put out a chair, laid down, stared up at the sky, and just for the entire evening with these other birders, basically tracked the amount
Wow.
of birds that came through this particular area.
Hmm,
So every chapter it kind of gives you more in depth. Some of them focus on a specific species of bird. Some of them focus on kind of how the birding world has changed. Um, it's one I came across accidentally. I was looking up something to read. I didn't even know it was her until I looked it up, and I'm like, "Why does this name sound familiar?" I looked her up. I go, "Oh, that's why I've seen her before."
yeah.
Um, but as I read through it, I was like, this is kind of a fun book because it was one of those books with no purpose to it, but it was a memoir that's not your typical memoir. It was kind of like, this is what I do in my free time. And you probably would have never known because not until now did I decide to actually tell anybody
Right,
about it.
right.
So for those who enjoy that kind of into the life of someone or into the life of birds, I think this would be a good one. A group called Booklist gave it a starter review, called it a wonderful ambassador for birds. No fluff. It's actually
Mhm.
just the experience of what it is to be, a bird. So, question I have for you: have you ever had something random, like a hobby, kind of just all of a sudden shift your view of life? Whether it was something you started doing, you took a walk somewhere and you're like, whoa. Has any of that ever?
I think my art where it's,
That's a good
so,
one. Yeah.
I started, as doing something called Zentangle, and it kind of just took on a life of its own. And I don't actually do Zentangle traditionally now, but it exposed me to all sorts of kind of art. So now I doodle and I do things like that I never would have done. So it's I look at this, it's kind of like a little bit of joy, right? And that's kind of what it feels like, even just in your description, that on her free time she went out birding and discovered this whole world. But it was a little bit of joy in your life. I love that. Well, other than that's your Bubba's name, Joy. I just really, I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool. How about you?
So for me, reintroducing my martial arts again made me remember why it was so fun. And then I noticed that I'll watch others on TV doing it, and I realized that it is like you just said. It's not necessarily you're doing it for a job or you're doing it for a
Yeah.
thing. You might be doing it for a job, but it's the fun you have. And when you
Right,
hear people talk about, when you get on the mat and you do the thing and you do the whatever,
right.
you just see these people not care about anything other than just enjoying their
And that
work.
and I think that's a wonderful way to look at what you do for hobbies and different things. If it doesn't bring you joy like that, if it doesn't put you in a new space, then maybe you need a new hobby. Um, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true. I mean,
want
I think
this
a lot of times when
right,
you do something, which is why, like, you don't do something because it's the popular thing. Do something because you enjoy,
right.
doing it. And a lot of times, it's usually the older activities that you did before that are
Simple.
more.
The simpler it to a simple life. And I think a lot of us, me included, are looking for a simpler life. And so if we can find something that gives us, even for that moment, it's a good thing,
Do you
right?
think that that would allow people to kind of like slow down and focus on things more if they
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of like did something fun
You
for
know, I
fun's
think,
sake?
Robin, that we're not talking about, AI or anything of that nature, but with things going in that direction, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about going back to analog and going back
Mhm.
to face in IRL, in real life, instead of all of this remote stuff where people are not involved, where humanity is not involved. And I'm
Yeah.
seeing this analog, the flip phones. People are going back to flip phones, for God's sake. Do you even know what a flip phone? I don't think you ever had a
Yes.
flip.
I
You don't?
remember
Okay.
yes.
Um, but I think it's to go into a simpler time. I seriously, I think it's we are so caught up in the crazy right now, not just the world, but also artificial intelligence, all this stuff that's out there. I think we're literally looking for something to simplify our life. I know I am.
And that's what this book does perfectly well. Most of the time, when somebody writes a book about nature, it's a very academic type of thing. Taylor here doesn't do that. She uses, introspection and funny jokes and all that stuff. And the fact that her job is as an actor, uses that as her secret weapon in this book to basically figure out how to watch closely, how to read things, how to see, because that's her job as an actor, right? She has to watch the room and see what the next scene or whatever is going to
Right,
be.
right,
So that's what makes this book, like you were saying, so much more in the present, more calm, more easy, because there's no point in it where, she's going over the top to make a
right.
point. At one moment in the book, she is talking about where her and her mom are sitting in front of a chimney outside of a school waiting for birds to come out of it because it was a
Wow.
specific species of bird. She actually does this whole thing at that part where she tries to get them to reopen up the thing because the school ended up putting a grate on top so the birds wouldn't go in, and she
Uh,
ended up trying to get this whole thing done. And I'll let you guys read what happens, but it's things like that where she talks about, you know, the enjoyment of pulling in behind an empty parking lot and just
right,
sitting there for 2 hours waiting for a bird to either go in or come out of the chimney.
right.
Um, all the chapters are pretty quick. You can think of them as little essays, kind of like that. The whole book is only about, I think, 200 pages. Um, but it's a very simple idea.
Mhm,
That's what, and that's what we're talking
right.
about here. Is there a skill that you think that you have that kind of is related to this idea of like you didn't think it was important or you didn't think it was whatever, but you kind of learned about it through doing
Oh,
an
go back to
activity.
Zentangle. Go back to Zentangle. Zentangle helps me slow down and meditate in a way that I don't always have that ability to do with straight meditation. Like you sit there and
Right.
Zentangle completely brings me into it, and it makes me better at meditating.
And I was actually going to just use meditation because even though obviously I'm not perfect at it, it's the idea of just doing it and
Right,
enjoying it. That's what makes it important. I mean,
right.
you could train to do the full, but at the same time, if you just sit and you either follow one or you look outside or
And
whatever.
you breathe. You just breathe.
Exactly. And I think an important thing to think of here is that a book doesn't need to be important, quote unquote, to be worth reading. I think a book in this case proves that just pure fun, pure silly, pure whatever is more than enough to read, a book. So as we ended here, should you read it? Who would want to read it? If you look at things like Goodreads and stuff like that, they are all mentioning, this is a good book to do. For someone who just wants to read, this is the book or a book that would make you read more, I think, because it's simple enough
It's
that
an
it'll
easy
get you
read,
into reading,
right? It's an
but
easy.
it's also interesting for somebody who, likes this stuff or just likes to read, and you just want to add it to, oh, I want to read 50 books in the year. Well, here's a quick one to read just to throw it on your list. Like either way, it's a very good.
Is it? And you
um,
said it's a quick read.
Yeah, I think it's like 200 pages if you read in the book. I think the actual audio was like 4 hours, 5 hours. It was not a very long book. Another book like this, Amy Tan, who we all know, she wrote the Backyard Bird Chronicles. That's another book that's similar to this. Basically, she was burnt out, retired, all that stuff, and wanted to find something to reconnect to herself. So she got into birding. So
Interesting.
who would have thought that just looking at the birds
Yeah,
would make such a difference? So
I
we'll
love
leave it
that.
at this before we end it. Are you guys birders? Do you like watching nature? Let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll do more of these nature type books,
So,
in
I
the
mean, with
future.
this, when we look at this, Robin, before we talk about the store very quickly, so bird watching can be as simple as having a hummingbird feeder in your backyard or some
Yep,
bird feeders in your backyard. And we have those, and we sit and watch the birds. And we watch the
exactly. Yeah.
hummingbirds exactly. And there's something about that's something so calming about it because they're simply just going about their life, right?
Well said. I could
Well,
not have said it better.
well, you probably could have because you're the writer. Check out the next chapter bookstore.shop. All sorts of books there. Check it out. I know you have some activities and things that are going on. So there's all sorts of things that are in. Go check it out. Let us know what you would like us to talk about. Is there something that we haven't touched on yet that you would like us to, review a book or a concept or whatever? Reach out to us because we would love to do it. And Rob, as we like to end our show,
Go read a book.
go read a book.